Those who follow the news as it relates to climate change on a regular basis are aware and ultimately concerned that the weather is becoming more unpredictable and more bizarre with each passing day. As an example of the changes we are now confronted with, let's look at the weather patterns and climate conditions that are happening in the United States. The East Coast is experiencing an inexplicably warm summer. Historically temperate regions like the Adirondacks and the White Mountains were hit with numerous record-high temperatures that have baffled meteorologists across the nation. Forecasters, including some of the country's most respected climatologists, predict another warm fall and seasonable winter for areas normally ravaged by blistering cold and mountains of snow. Although the National Weather Service, the NOAA, and the World Meteorological Organization provide no meaningful explanation for sudden drastic climate change, ostracized scientists and whistleblowers attribute these Earth changes to Nibiru, said to be a brown dwarf star with 7 orbiting planets rapidly approaching our inner solar system. According to recent non-established reports, Dr. Ethan Trowbridge, a former USGS climatologist who supervised the geomagnetism program and the core sciences division of this agency, blames climate discrepancies on Nibiru's proximity to our planet. According to Trowbridge, Nibiru is no myth. It is real and it is here. The USGS has secretly monitored Nibiru's approach for some 3 decades now, conveniently covering up its existence and influence on our planet with a mountain of misinformation, like blaming climate shift on greenhouse gases. Dr. Trowbridge cites a leaked USGS memo as evidence of Nibiru's influence on Earth. This memo, showing here, demonstrates a significant deviation from established weather in the northeastern United States. If all information is accurate, this forecast depicts a dangerous rise in median temperatures along the eastern seaboard. Many noteworthy scholars have argued that even a worldwide 3-degree shift will destabilize the Earth's atmosphere and plunge this planet into another ice age with a resulting pole shift. Do you know who this man is? His name is Damir Zakharovich. He is a Russian astronomer and former scientific advisor to Vladimir Putin. Earlier this year, he divulged information about the dark star to Pravda, and now has to operate from the shadows for fear of being blacklisted. He recently indicated that the drastic changes that are occurring across the globe, and especially this year in the United States, depends on the movement of Planet X, which is consistently moving, and the changes here on Earth fluctuate with the movement of this planet in our solar system. He further explains that the planets around the brown dwarf orbit this dark star. The precise position of the planets and the system itself dictate how the Nibiru system impacts Earth at any given moment in time. As it grows close, changes will be more widespread and pronounced. In recent months, a growing number of whistleblowers have come out to speak publicly about the arrival of Planet X. The USGS is believed to be one of those government agencies that is actively engaging, along with NASA, to conceal Nibiru's existence and to blame drastic climate changes on man-made events, like over-reliance on fossil fuels and releasing chlorofluorocarbons into the atmosphere, rather than attribute Earth changes to Nibiru's proximity to our planet. The United States Geological Survey has known for many years that Antarctica would be ravaged by the approach of this system. This is because Nibiru is on an elongated elliptical orbit relative to our southern hemisphere. So people living in this part of the world would see Nibiru first, and they shall also be the first to experience whatever Nibiru brings with it. And it's not bringing anything good. The Ronnie ice shelf will likely break off the continent and drift into the Weddell Sea. This will cause enormous icebergs to drift toward New Zealand. As the ice reaches warmer waters, it will rapidly melt, causing a significant rise in sea levels. To give you an idea of the significance of such an event if it were to take place, and recent data from these locations suggest that this is happening now and at an accelerated rate. Take a look at this video of what our future continents may look like. The Ross Ice Shelf, the world's largest at 487,000 square kilometers, roughly the size of France, may also separate from the continent, causing mountainous clusters of ice to float south towards New Zealand and Australia. Polar storms, unlike any the world has seen, will ravage the continent in conjunction with a marked increase in seismic and volcanic activity. Mount Sipple, one of Antarctica's largest active volcanoes, is certain to erupt, sending a plume of deadly ash into the atmosphere. This will be the start of a pole shift. Large earthquakes will ripple across the continent. Add to that multiple super eruptions. This will shake Antarctica to its very foundation. And this is just the beginning. What happens in Antarctica is merely a precursor for what will happen across the entire globe. The devastation will start there, then rapidly spread. Scientists who are aware and who know of this approaching system have indicated that those living in the southern hemisphere will be the first to witness its destruction, but that those who live in the northern hemisphere should be prepared for what's coming, as the geography of North America will be forever changed by the rising sea levels and tsunamis that will affect all three coastlines of the United States. Those living in large metropolitan areas near coastlines will be affected in unimaginable ways by these drastic changes, as the coastlines of the United States will be several hundred miles inland from their current locations. It may be interesting to note that this data matches warnings issued by other Nibiru whistleblowers and researchers. Renegade astronomer Paul Cox and Nibiru enthusiast John Moore have released maps depicting North America's post-Nibiru coastlines. I know this all sounds horrible and almost unbelievable. This depiction is what we would call a perfect nightmare scenario for millions of people. But it is important that you remember one thing above all else. Humans have a strong desire to survive. So although lives will be changed in the blink of an eye by what approaches, life will continue on this planet in one form or another, as it always has. I would like to direct your attention to a few very intriguing images and videos that I received just recently. Now, I would encourage you to continue sending your images and video captures to our Facebook page at the address shown here. You can also send them private email on our YouTube account by clicking on the About icon located on our channel page shown below. The first image captured from the Soho Imaging website on September the 16th is showing a massive object just below the ecliptic plane, which is shaped similar to a comet. Now, if we enlarge this object, you will notice that immediately behind this giant comet-like object is a trail of debris, meteors and asteroids, and then a cluster of planets and smaller objects following in a serpentine formation or a double helix formation, what some have called the string of pearls. Now, if this satellite image has indeed captured this complex of planets or the Nemesis system, then the notion that it has entered our inner solar system, as Marshall Masters and Major Ed Dames and other Nibiru researchers are now claiming, then this could be very well true. Once the system crosses the ecliptic plane, its movement will be more rapid, and it will become more visible in both the daylight and the evening sky. On September 2nd, an incredible video capture of the blue Kachina was recorded in the evening sky. Take a look at these extraordinary images seen from a distance and then enlarged. This fits the description of the blue star as described by the Hopi tribe. Now take a look at the image once again in this photo. To the right is the actual object that was observed. But if you look at the ancient inscription to the left, you will notice how remarkably similar the circled inscription is to the formation of the observed object. These images are absolutely astonishing and irrefutably undeniable. Finally, I wanted to share this September 14th video capture by a sky watcher that actually considers himself to be a diehard skeptic of Planet X. He says that after viewing what he captured outside on video on a moonlight night, he has to admit that there is something out there that he cannot explain away. Furthermore, he says that the object appears to be moving slowly towards us. Now, obviously, what he has picked up cannot possibly be as close as between the Earth and the Moon. But what he has captured certainly resembles a planet. And if you look closely at the movement of the clouds in the background, you will notice that they pass in front of this very large entity. So folks, there are some very strange things appearing in the heavens, which we just cannot explain. Images of this incoming system are becoming more prevalent each passing day, and it's up to each of us to be more vigilant and observant in the days ahead. Whatever is happening now is an ominous sign, a warning of what is coming our way. These signs are given to us so that we may warn others of the dangers that lie ahead, so that we may gain the courage and the fortitude to prepare ourselves both mentally and physically for what lies in wait.
Media and news networks all have the same third rail policy. No way, no how will they ever honestly report any Planet X system observations whatsoever. That being said, this policy, like any other, is subject to the occasional fluke. It's Murphy's Law. If anything can go wrong, it will, and in the case of NBC News, their affiliate in Sacramento, California, KCRA, was that fluke. In a live pre-dawn telecast on or about January 14, 2014, the morning news anchors of this NBC News affiliate, KCRA in Sacramento, California, aired live video from their own news helicopter. In it, they reported an observation of a planet they could not explain. Let's briefly view that broadcast.
We're back.
Stargazing.
It is a celestial rock.
Awakening.
In space, if you will. Dirk, Dirk, what is it? We're all like, it's a planet? Is it the moon?
Actually,
what is it?
We've been searching, trying to find you in the newsroom because we know you know.
Ask Dirk, what is it?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, is it the moon? I don't know. You'd have to back up. I'd have to be outside to really see, but that looks like a point of light. And if it's close to the sun, where the sun's coming up, then more than likely that's... I can't believe that we could see Venus that close.
But it is a planet, right? Because it's not twinkling, or is that a myth?
No, I would say that that's a planet, yeah, but
it's Saturn.
It's hard.
Okay, Tamara wants in on this one. She's been Googling.
No, that can't be Saturn unless there's an eclipse going on. No, because you don't see Saturn with a chunk taken out of it.
Maybe that's
you only see the moon that have a chunk like that, and the only other planet that I know of that you see a chunk taken out of it like that would be Venus. Because it's on the inside planet. Saturn and Jupiter, they're all outside planets.
Right. And this,
Earth,
friends,
so
is what it's like when you stop by the weather department at any moment.
Right.
These are the kinds of conversations that you will stumble into.
I need to go outside and see it so I can be sure what I'm looking at.
Let's just send you up in the chopper so you can investigate properly. How
I'd love to.
That would be great.
Yeah, go up into the KCRA observatory and get back to us. Thank you, Dirk.
All right.
Okay.
What our analysis will show is that the KCRA morning news anchors observed two planets via their live news helicopter feed, specifically the planet Venus eclipsing the planet Nibiru. After seeing our findings, you, the viewer, can then decide for yourself. Is NBC News the first mainstream television network to unwillingly air a Nibiru report? Then we'll present our analysis of this new report, and finally we'll close with KCRA's response to our request for basic information about the broadcast. What is important to remember about this live pre-dawn KCRA report is that it was aired live. What you see is a real-time feed from a news helicopter after takeoff in the early morning, well before sunrise. To illustrate the key points, let's review a series of video frames taken from this news report. Here you see that the cameraman is imaging an object in the sky and it is fairly round. Looking closer at the object of interest, we see that the camera is zoomed to such a wide setting that it's difficult for the camera to give us accurate details. However, with a color shift analysis, we do see patterns that are consistent with natural objects. It is important to note that when camera operators spot something of interest, they'll focus in on it, which is what we see here, now that the cameraman has zoomed into a medium setting. Then, with a closer look at the object of interest, we see a deformation at the 2 o'clock position, especially when we study just the outline. Moving on, in this image, we see that the cameraman is fully zoomed in to a very tight setting. At this point, the question is, Are we seeing a lens aberration? With this in mind, remember that these images are being captured from a moving helicopter. So what we do see is natural movement, absent any evidence of a lens aberration. Further evidence of this is the crossfade from the camera feed to the production studio at KCRA. Here we can still see this image in the crossfade. So what exactly are we looking at? 2 planets. The first is Venus, in which we see the nighttime side of the planet as it eclipses the planet Nibiru, in which we see the daylight side of that planet. To help you understand how we drew this conclusion, let's begin with this planetary alignment for January 14, 2014, as depicted by the Solar System Scope program. On that day, the moon is behind Earth, so we know that it is impossible to say that one of these 2 objects could be the moon. Likewise, given the alignment of Mercury and its relative size, we can rule out that planet as well, which brings us to Venus. On this day, it was in an inferior conjunction directly between the Earth and the Sun. This is why Venus appears as a black disk as it eclipses Nibiru. To help put this in perspective, let's use this simple illustration of the phases of Venus. Here we see it on January 14, 2014. Because the Sun is directly behind it, what is presented to us on Earth is the night side of Venus. Conversely, were Venus in a superior conjunction on the opposite side of the Sun, we would see its full day side. This brings us to the question, where exactly was Venus in relationship to the Sun during this pre-dawn live helicopter video feed aired on January 14, 2014? Here we see that precise alignment with the Starry Night program. Please note the white line running across the bottom third of the screen. This represents the horizon as it was seen from Sacramento on that day. And here you see that the Sun was below the horizon at that time. However, Venus, which is directly above the Sun that day, was above the horizon. So now let's assemble the various alignments we have into a complete picture. The key to this is that Venus was directly in front of Earth in an inferior conjunction. As you can see by the illustration here, what we saw of Venus was its night side. To further illustrate the point, let's use this photograph of Venus transiting the Sun. It is a black dot, and the commercial jet also captured in this photograph is equally black. This is consistent with the Sun being below the horizon and Venus being directly above it and the horizon as well. Ergo, Venus was accurately videographed in this live pre-dawn KCRA news broadcast. This brings us to the final question of the analysis. Was Venus eclipsing Nibiru as our analysis shows? In this KCRA broadcast, 2 planets were imaged. To understand why one is dark and one is bright, let's quickly review what we learned about the phases of Venus, which applies to any other planet in our solar system. When the planet is directly in front of the Sun, before us, we see its night side. And when it is directly behind our Sun, before us, we see its day side. This was the case on January 14, 2014, where Venus is directly in front of the Sun and Nibiru is directly behind it. But is it really Nibiru? And if it is, would it be possible to find corroborating images? On both accounts, yes. When we look at the field of view from Sacramento when that live camera feed was broadcast, the constellation Aquila was above and to the left of the Sun, Venus, and Nibiru. This is consistent with what we have reported in previous videos during this same relative span of time. Here we see an image by Richard Bolerup taken on December 13, 2013 in support of his own naked eye observation, which places Nibiru in the same region of the sky as a published observation by the 00 Skyview team on October 21, 2013. Note where the constellation Aquila appears in this region of the sky. Here we have another image of Nibiru captured by the Turrialba webcam on January 2014, which places Nibiru in the same region of the sky as Richard Bolerup's observation on December 13, 2013. And here, approximately, is where it appears when we add it to the previous two observations. Once again, note its relationship to the constellation Aquila. Here we have a subsequent image in support of another naked eye observation of Nibiru by Richard Bolerup on January 8, 2014, again in the same region of the sky. We therefore concluded that we have evidence of a clear pattern. But to make this even more complete, we also offer another image of Nibiru captured by the Turrialba webcam on February 12, 2014, which again places Nibiru in the same region of the sky. Taken all together, what we have are reliable observations of Nibiru by three different sources in the same region of the sky. And once again, we see the constellation Aquila, which is also what we saw earlier in our analysis of the KCRA observation report. So, do the dots connect? Here we see an approximate pre-dawn position for Nibiru as it was observed by the live feed from the KCRA news helicopter. Therefore, what we now have are reliable observations from 4 different sources for the same exact object, the planet Nibiru. With this in mind, let's look at that KCRA broadcast once again, so that you, the viewer, can compare our findings with what you now observe in this live broadcast recording.
We are back.
Stargazing.
It is a celestial rock.
Awakening.
In space, if you will. Dirk, Dirk, what is it? We're all like, it's a planet? Is it the moon?
Actually,
what is it?
We've been searching, trying to find you in the newsroom because we know you know.
Ask Dirk, what is it?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, is it the moon? I don't know. You'd have to back up. I'd have to be outside to really see, but that looks like a point of light. And if it's close to the sun, where the sun's coming up, then more than likely that's... I can't believe that we could see Venus that close.
But it is a planet, right? Because it's not twinkling, or is that a myth?
No, I would say that that's a planet, yeah, but
it's Saturn.
It's hard.
Okay, Tamara wants in on this one. She's been Googling.
No, that can't be Saturn unless there's an eclipse going on. No, because you don't see Saturn with a chunk taken out of it.
Maybe that's the
you only see the moon that have a chunk like that, and the only other planet that I know of that you see a chunk taken out of it like that would be Venus. Because it's on the inside planet. Saturn and Jupiter, they're all outside planets.
Right. And this,
Earth,
friends,
so
is what it's like when you stop by the weather department at any moment.
Right.
These are the kinds of conversations that you will stumble into.
I need to go outside and see it so I can be sure what I'm looking at.
Let's just send you up in the chopper so you can investigate properly.
Oh, I'd love to.
Agreed.
Yeah, go up into the KCRA observatory and get back to us. Thank you, Dirk.
All right.
Okay.
In order to produce the most accurate analysis, I contacted Jim Stimson, the Assistant News Director for KCRA Sacramento, for additional information on February 2015. In a follow-up email that day, I confirmed my request in writing as follows. I will be producing a video from my YouTube channel regarding this KCRA broadcast, and am requesting the following information from your station. 1. Exact date, time, and location of the video capture. We need this for plotting an accurate star chart. 2. Equipment used. Of particular importance is the lens. 3. Names of the news anchors that appear at the end of the clip. And 4. A 1080p MPEG video file, if possible, of the broadcast for detailed examination. I then received the following answer from Mr. Stimson on February 25, 2015. Marshall, thank you for your interest in our video. As a matter of policy, we only share our resources, news gathering information, and editorial content on a very limited basis with certain other news organizations. I am following up to let you know that your project is not something we are interested in being a part of. Jim Stimson, Assistant News Director, KCRA. For the record, we never asked KCRA to be a part of any project. We only asked them for information about one of their own live broadcasts. While Mr. Stimson showed an unwillingness to provide any information whatsoever, the one thing that stands out is this. KCRA denies nothing. This concludes our report.
WTF? WTF? What the fuck does W...
Hello brothers and sisters, I have something I'd like to bring to your awareness about ISON. I, just like many others, have been seeking connections to make sense of our past, to work out the reality of the present, and forecasting into the future. I will start off this rabbit hole with a short video of an ancient artifact.
This is the so-called pyramid with the shining eye. Even Jim used it for his new bestseller. So it means it is a very, very famous but also very, very old symbol. And this is the only existing really pyramid with the eye. It has exactly 13 steps, like the pyramid on the $1 US. The strange thing with this one and other artifacts found in Ecuador, that if you put black light on it, the eye shines really very, very strong. And the natural color is kind of light green and gray. And the most impressive for me was that on the bottom of the pyramid, you have here in gold inlays the Orion constellation and an unknown writing. This unknown writing we found on stones all over the world. In Ecuador, in Colombia, in Illinois, in Gloucester, France, in Calabria, Italy, in Turkmenistan, in Malta, and Rex Gilroy has some pictures on his website, and I found out that some of the stones he shows with unknown writing presents the same writing. That means there must have existed a global civilization long time ago. And there was only one man able to translate this language, Professor Kurt Schildmann. He was the president of the German Linguistic Association. He spoke and wrote more than 40 languages perfect, and he could translate this writing, and he called it pre-Sanskrit because it's older than the oldest writing. And the translation of these 4 letters on the bottom of the pyramid was, "The Son of the Creator comes."
Hopefully when he said that, something clicked. Is it not strange that people who have the job of naming celestial bodies also seem to have had esoteric information, such as the phrase on the bottom of the pyramid that we only know of as the Illuminati symbol? The comet was named as if it is announcing its own identity, ISON. This leads me to think that this comet is important to these people, so let's continue and see where it takes us. Let's take a closer look at the comet itself to find any abnormalities. I will now cut to a clip from BP Earthwatch, who does a brilliant analysis of the comet itself.
Guys, this image was the last one that we got from Hubble, and it was on the video a few weeks ago. And they did an overlay of 3 images to get this coloration that you see in here. They used blue, red, and I think the black and white filter, took the shots and overlaid them, and we came out and they said it was a smooth image. And the video that I did where we were watching the meeting, if you remember, of the different astronomers and scientists at the IC meeting, the Comet I-Sun meeting, and one of the guys at the end said that the jets were irregular. They were not. They were at a distinct angle from the sun. Well, and again, I was complaining that if they were getting shots every 15 minutes of Hubble, from Hubble, why aren't we getting more? Well, what I wanted to do was find the images that they used to make this composite. Now, when they overlaid this, they smoothed a lot of edges out. Was that the purpose? To make it look like one object, guys? Is that what they're doing? I want to dig a little deeper here. Now, I found the 3 images that they used to make this picture, and now I think I know why. I'm going to pull this over. This is the black and white one. This is from the red filter and the green filter here. I'm going to pull this black and white up, guys. Just hang in there a minute. See what we got. Now, without the overlay and what they've added in, you can see what's inside this comet, or inside this coma haze here. You have 3 objects. And this is not an object behind these 2. You see how this cloud is irregular. This will not be happening. Now, this is what's called the Hubble Web Viewer, and I'm going to put it up after I load the video. You can't put links in the description until after the video is loaded, so sometimes it takes about 10 minutes to get that information under it. But this is called the I-Sun Web Viewer, or Web Image Viewer, and you notice the numbers here. As you move your cursor around, it gives you where you're at. You see that? Now, it also has what's called invert, darker, and lighter. You notice how they've got it real bright. Now, this is the released image here, and at this sun, this star appears to be having a solar flare or coronal mass ejection out the side. But let's try to get it. Let's just darken this thing a couple times, and again, I'm going to link this. You notice that it's starting to clear up. It was overexposed, the one that was released. Here's I-Sun. Here's your coronal mass ejection. That's what's inside that coma. Now, that looks like a comet. This I don't know, but again, it's part of this cloud. We'll pull it up. You can also zoom, and it will zoom very big. One more time. Now let's go to light, and let's blur it out the way that it was when you go to the page. As we lighten it up, it's just increasing your exposure time, basically. Watch what happens to it. You still see that oblong shape inside that coma? There's about the way we get it. Now we're going to go back dark. Right there. Now remember that one scientist said some of the jets are not pointed right. Is that what we're looking at here, guys? Something's just not right. I would say this was some kind of marker or something if it was not for this cloud. Pull it up. Let's look at it close. This is the real image of what's inside that cloud. I'm going to go darker. You tell me. I don't know. Heads up.
So I hope we can agree this comet, if indeed it is a comet at all, has 3 parts which seem to be moving in formation, for the lack of a better word. Now we will take a look at its orbit and see if there is any other interesting abnormalities that let us make more sense of it all. As you can see, ISON is on a highly elliptical orbit around our Sun. When I saw this, it reminded me of a binary star system, which has its orbit of its 2 stars as follows. At the same time, it clicked that this orbital pattern had been used before in a calendar. I put it to you that it was not the ancients that were the ones who were wrong with their concept of time, but it was our concept of time that has been manipulated by the Gregorian calendar from the Church. Given that if all this is true, in its passing some large-scale events are going to happen, let's take a look and see if there is any national exercises being carried out in the same time frame as it is passing, since the US government seems to have this remarkable ability to stage exercises on the exact events that are taking place, such as the bomb exercise in Boston and the hijacking exercise on 9/11.
Possible emergency FEMA Region 3 alert. FEMA Region 3 consists of Washington, D.C., Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia. This alert was sent to us by Senator Sheldon R. Songstad, retired, of South Dakota State. Here is what the Senator's National Preparedness Research turned up. FEMA purchase orders for over $14.2 million for MREs and heater meals to be delivered to Region 3 by October 1st. FEMA purchase orders for 2 million pouches of emergency water to be delivered to FEMA Region 3 by October 1st. FEMA purchase orders for $13.6 million for MREs and heater meals to be delivered to Austin by October 1st. 9-week training course for UN peacekeepers in CONUS to learn urban warfare. They're learning urban warfare, and they need to learn English and U.S. weapons systems. We're having foreign soldiers learn our U.S. weapons systems. This has been going on since the 4th week of July for 386,000 troops to be completed by October 1st. 2,800 MRAPs must be delivered to DHS by October 1st. No leave will be allowed for U.S. military from September 28th through November 5th. NORCOM yearly training for civil unrest is to be suspended until September 27th to be performed in northeast coastal areas. Date for release of QE3 report is to be moved to October 16th. All DHS agents must qualify with sidearm, shotgun, and AR-15 by September 28th. No mention of yearly less lethal qualification. The sporadic testing of GPS and communication satellites is coordinated for the very first time ever, with a testing date of September 29th. POTUS mandates to FEMA and DHS concerning support for metropolitan communities dealing with the extreme climate change must be complete by October 1st. These mandates were issued during the last 3 weeks. Over 300 school systems in the U.S. have determined their 3-day kits for each school and 3-day kits for each student to take with them. All deliveries are scheduled for the month of September. All National Guard units will complete riot control and disaster assistance training during this year's annual 2-week training. All units must have their training complete by September 30th. Daily testing of emergency broadcast system to begin on September 25th and run through October 2nd. Eastern-based Coast Guard units to perform massive group training, usually performed in the Gulf, in the Virginia and Delaware areas. This is a 10-day training mission to begin September 26th.
So as they all qualify in the 10 days training, there is less than 2 weeks for the passing of ice on. It might be wise for you to allow your iPhone to run completely flat for this period of time, my American brothers. We all have been watching you make the same transitionary steps as pre-Nazi Germany for many years now. They have been building the engine bolt by bolt in front of your eyes so that you don't see. If economic hitmen had not enslaved most of the world to the US dollar, I would not feel the way about the American corpocracy and the money masters of the World Bank that control it. You're the whacking stick of the Rothschild banking cartel, and I want you to know that guns will not solve this problem. Endurance and lack of fear of death will make all the difference. As we know from the past, the men taking the orders eventually help the people if they do not found themselves as the enemy. Standing in the streets and moving like a school of fish around the attacks, no matter what, but without a word or violence, will make all the executioners think as a human, as they indiscriminately murder innocents, maintaining silence so they have to hear the cries of the innocent people that they harm, and more importantly, allow them to hear their own conscience, rather than reactions to the training in warfare that have been drilled into them. In the end, we are all merely consciousness contained within a magnetic bubble, collectively contained within another magnetic bubble, collectively contained within another magnetic bubble, which is just one magnetic knot in the web of light that encompasses the universe, which is also replicated within us. We as a collective are going to make the choice of our destination. Live by the sword and die by the sword. Don't fire a shot and kill us all, please. This is much bigger than you and I.
The Ross Ice Shelf, the world's largest at 487,000 square kilometers, roughly the size of France, may also separate from the continent, causing mountainous clusters of ice to float south towards New Zealand and Australia. Polar storms, unlike any the world has seen, will ravage the continent in conjunction with a marked increase in seismic and volcanic activity. Mount Sipple, one of Antarctica's largest active volcanoes, is certain to erupt, sending a plume of deadly ash. Those who follow the news as it relates to climate change on a regular basis are aware and ultimately concerned that the weather is becoming more unpredictable and more bizarre with each passing day. As an example of the changes we are now confronted with, let's look at the weather patterns and climate conditions that are happening in the United States. The East Coast is experiencing an inexplicably warm summer. Historically temperate regions like the Adirondacks and the White Mountains were hit with numerous record high temperatures that have baffled meteorologists across the nation. Forecasters, including some of the country's most respected climatologists, predict another warm fall and seasonable winter for areas normally ravaged by blistering cold and mountains of snow. Although the National Weather Service, the NOAA, and the World Meteorological Organization provide no meaningful explanation for sudden drastic climate change, ostracized scientists and whistleblowers attribute these Earth changes to Nibiru, said to be a brown dwarf star with 7 orbiting planets rapidly approaching our inner solar system. According to recent non-established reports, Dr. Ethan Trowbridge, a former USGS climatologist who spent many years that Antarctica would be ravaged by the approach of this system. This is because Nibiru is on an elongated elliptical orbit relative to our southern hemisphere. So people living in this part of the world would see Nibiru first, and they shall also be the first to experience whatever Nibiru brings with it. And it's not bringing anything good. The Ronnie ice shelf will likely break off the continent and drift into the Weddell Sea. This will cause enormous icebergs to drift toward New Zealand. As the ice reaches warmer waters, it will rapidly melt, causing a significant rise in sea levels. To give you an idea of the significance of such an event, if it were to take place, and recent data from these locations suggest that this is happening now and at an accelerated rate. Take a look at this video of what our future continents may look like. Supervise the geomagnetism program and the core sciences division of this agency, blames climate discrepancies on Nibiru's proximity to our planet. According to Trowbridge, Nibiru is no myth. It is real and it is here. The USGS has secretly monitored Nibiru's approach for some 3 decades now, conveniently covering up its existence and influence on our planet with a mountain of misinformation, like blaming climate shift on greenhouse gases. Dr. Trowbridge cites a leaked USGS memo as evidence of Nibiru's influence on Earth. This memo, showing here, demonstrates a significant deviation from established weather in the northeastern United States. If all information is accurate, this forecast depicts a dangerous rise in median temperatures along the eastern seaboard. Many noteworthy scholars have argued that even a worldwide 3-degree shift will destabilize the Earth's atmosphere and plunge this planet into another ice age with a resulting pole shift. Do you know who this man is? His name is Damir Zakharovich. He is a Russian astronomer and former scientific advisor to Vladimir Putin. Earlier this year, he divulged information about the dark star to Pravda, and now has to operate from the shadows for fear of being blacklisted. He recently indicated that the drastic changes that are occurring across the globe, and especially this year in the United States, depends on the movement of Planet X, which is consistently moving, and the changes here on Earth fluctuate with the movement of this planet in our solar system. He further explains that the planets around the brown dwarf orbit this dark star. The precise position of the planets and the system itself dictate how the Nibiru system impacts Earth at any given moment in time. As it grows close, changes will be more widespread and pronounced. In recent months, a growing number of whistleblowers have come out to speak publicly about the arrival of Planet X. The USGS is believed to be one of those government agencies that is actively engaging, along with NASA, to conceal Nibiru's existence and to blame drastic climate changes on man-made events, like over-reliance on fossil fuels and releasing chlorofluorocarbons into the atmosphere, rather than attribute Earth changes to Nibiru's proximity to our planet. The United States Geological Survey, as known for many